I didn't really have a lot of information or understanding of just how difficult it was for Cheryl's parents as children and growing up in Europe until 1996 when Steven Spielberg um, organized the Shoah Project, in which he went around the country interviewing survivors of the Holocaust and getting their stories and putting it on film so that future generations would always have that knowledge and information to be able to share. Since, as we both know, this generation of Holocaust survivors is now slowly disappearing and actually much more quickly disappearing. So, unfortunately, her dad, Manny, had passed away a few months ago, and I had an opportunity to put together a eulogy. But a lot of the information I obtained was from his own words when he did the Shoah Project in January of 1996, and they came to their home and interviewed both of them. So I really had the opportunity then to have a much greater understanding of just what he lived through at that time and how difficult things were. And despite how much pain was inflicted upon them, there was ultimately an incredible will to live. That will to live is just beyond anything that we really can comprehend. But that's what got him through. And he never forsake his Judaism, although it was absent for a period of time when he was suffering in a concentration camp. Once he was liberated, which was in May of 1945, he then realized that life will go on, and the best way to dedicate himself to all of those who had passed was to make sure he became a productive person and lived a good Jewish life, which I can say definitely he did.
The interesting thing is when I was a child growing up, I think I had a very strong identity that I was Jewish. We did follow all the traditions and really my mom made sure all the holidays were done in the traditional sense, and we really enjoyed it. But I will say this, they rarely spoke about the Holocaust. And I think there were probably several reasons why. I think, first of all, it was still too fresh, even though it was 20 plus 25 years to 30 years after the fact. Those memories were still too painful to discuss. It would come up sometimes. I never pushed my parents to talk more about it because as a child, I don't want to hear about my parents suffering. It's not something I wanted to hear about because that would be too painful to me. So I never pressed them for information, and they really did not speak about it much. They were clear that this is our identity. They were clear in terms of raising me and saying to me, your relationships should be with, I don't mean friendships, I mean romantic relationships should be with other Jews, because there was a strong sense that you have to have the responsibility to propagate your religion. After 6 million Jewish people were murdered, there was a strong sense that you stay within your own religion and you have Jewish children. And I truly believe that that's because they felt this obligation after surviving the Holocaust, that they're going to make sure that they convey to their children, you are to continue with the Jewish traditions and hopefully have a Jewish family of your own. And I also recognized as a child and young adult that my parents were definitely different than other parents on the block and in the neighborhood. They were really more, I guess I thought they were old-fashioned, but I guess that they were just rooted in the traditional values that they grew up with in Europe. And while they tried to assimilate, I don't think they ever fully assimilated, because I truly believe that they never felt completely comfortable with people that were born in America. And really you can tell that they would seek out other Holocaust survivors, and that's with whom they had their level of comfort. And it's amazing, but my mother did maintain lifelong friendships with girls that she grew up with in Berlin. Many of those friends moved to New York, like my parents, and then subsequently moved to Florida, like my parents. And I think it's so rare that one can maintain a lifelong relationship with people, but I think a lot of it had to do with their background, with their commonality, and the fact that they do represent a unique group of people. My father didn't maintain any friendships from his childhood because there weren't anyone. There wasn't anyone. You know, he really, when he came to this country, aside from a handful of relatives, there was no other survivors. So he didn't have an opportunity to maintain friendships from his native country. I definitely do feel an obligation to continue Jewish traditions and to raise my children to have a strong sense of Judaism, and hopefully by imparting a strong sense of Judaism into my children, that when they have their own families, they will be able to raise children according to the Jewish tradition. It's important to me because that was instilled to me from a very, very young age. And I truly believe it was because of the persecution my parents went through. And there's definitely a sense that after having 6 million Jewish people murdered, there's a responsibility amongst the Jewish people to try to propagate the religion. As an adult, as I get older, it's even more important to me. And in fact, this very spring, I'm going on a trip called the March of the Living, in which 10,000 Jews yearly from around the world meet in Poland and go to various concentration camps, including Auschwitz. And we will march from Auschwitz to one of the other camps, which really signifies what in World War II later became known as Death March, as the Nazis evacuated the prisoners from concentration camps and literally marched them in the bitter cold without any adequate clothing or shoes. And many of them were either shot for perhaps stepping out of line, or shot because they were slowing down. And that's why those marches became known as death marches. And here we are all these years later, going back to show the world, really, that we're still here. Hitler did not accomplish what he set out to, and it really, it will have a tremendous amount of meaning to me. And fortunately, I'm going to do that journey with my daughter Samantha and my son Ross.
What a lot of people may not know about the Holocaust is that people have heard of the gas chambers, the concentration camps, the crematoria, but 3 million Jews, as well as many other non-Jews, were killed on these death marches, but 3 million of them were killed by being shot. There was a group of SS officers called the Einsatzgruppen, which was a group set out essentially to go out into villages, towns, and also to assist at these camps like the one her father was out, Mauthausen, in which most of the killing was not done in gas chambers, it was done by shooting these victims. It was an absolute horror and atrocity that was done. The most famous of which was Babi Yar. Babi Yar was a town on the edge of the eastern Ukraine where 72 or 3,000 Jews were taken out of a town and lined up in rows, and after day, these people were basically shot and just their bodies were pushed over into a large ditch. It's unfathomable that these things could have happened. Now, I want to get back to a question you had asked originally, and it's a very good question, a very difficult question, because it's one that's hard to answer. I think that...
Which question?
The question about, what is it? What is it that makes us have this feeling of a tie to our heritage? What is this bond that's created? And you can think back to something as simple as the movie Fiddler on the Roof, where they talk about tradition and about a lifestyle and about values and family values. And I believe that these are the things that are handed down from one generation to the next, and that becomes part of you. It's part of your instincts. And there's a tremendous sense of good feeling and need to be part of this Jewish life. And we feel privileged to be part of it, and we hope that our children feel that way as well.